is in the chapter 4. You can read you read the textbooks as well as the lecture, and then complement. But lecture will be the main source of your notes. Okay, let's say there are some discussion not covered in the textbooks but covered in the lecture. So, okay, so you must keep your take all that in your for your study. Okay, budgeting practices in Malaysian public sector. Okay, so we'll cover strategic planning and control in Malaysian government. Then annual budgeting process in Malaysian government. So at the end, we'll cover MBS. Outcome-based budgeting will be for the next class. Okay. Okay, strategic planning, government policies provide a framework for various government organizations to plan and to accomplish government overall socio-economic objective. Okay, the unit in charge is economic planning unit, right? And then in the previous government, it was renamed as Ministry of Economic Affairs. Okay, with the minister led by a minister. Okay, before that, of course, EPU is directly under Prime Minister office. And then with the new government, so EPU is assigned to a minister, a senior minister. Okay, of course, the minister, the person is still the same, Datuk Sri Azmin. Okay, it plays an important role in the planning and controlling activities of Malaysian government and assisted with other government agencies. EPU particularly, the planning is for development plan. Development plan. Okay, if you talk about Malaysian plan, okay, generally it's under EPU. Right, planning process, initiator of policies, okay, can come from top, bottom up, okay, from agencies or maybe ideas from ministries, right, proposed to the cabinet ministers. I think I'm talking about the structure, how planning being proposed to the minister, it become a policy, or it become a program and activities in the government, and budget will be provided for. Okay, so at cabinet will be deliberate. At the end, okay, if there is a need, then the approval by the parliament is needed. Okay, normally, usually parliament, if there is a specific act to be passed, and then a certain government agencies will be created to basically enforce the law as well as to implement the mandate that is provided by the act. Okay, like Petronas, okay, like RISDA, and others. In generally, if you look at statutory bodies, they've been set up to manage a certain act of parliament. Even their establishment is under act of parliament. Okay, the process here, if you look at, there are various council at the middle there, National Planning Council, okay, generally definitely headed by the Prime Minister, okay. National Economic Action Council, and if you look at the middle there, there is two units, Economic Planning Unit, okay, for planning, and then another unit is Implementation Coordination Unit, or they call it ICU. So the word ICU not only for in the hospital, but in the government also, they call it Implementation and Coordination Unit. So very influential unit in under Prime Minister office. Okay. So basically, they are monitoring the progress of the initiatives, and as well as they also work with the Public Service Department, okay, to look at the function and activities of government organizations. Okay, if there is weaknesses in government organizations that they are not able to meet the objective or the mandates that have been assigned to them, so Public Service Department implemented ICU, you know, they can basically send their representative to manage the organizations. Okay, basically the government agencies will be reorganized and put into transition so that they can function and to achieve what is the objective it should be. Okay. Right, and then the machinery, right? We talk about National Planning Council, National Development, as well as the National Security Council. And the EPU and ICU is basically the secretariats. Right, planning horizon in Malaysia, we have a long-term national development policy, more than 5 years. Okay, if you look at the bottom there, the new economic policy, and then move to new development policy. Okay, I think 90s, and then change to Vision 2020. So Vision 2020, of course, the year is this year, where the policy that time was in 1990s or early 2000 that Malaysia should achieve developed nation status by this year. Okay, but of course, in between, so many things happen. So in most, I think, 50 to 20 years of planning. Right, and then at the middle there, medium-term plan. Okay, so they call it Malaysian plan. So every 5 years, this is what we always have as a main budget. If you look at development budget, so it's kind of a strategic planning, where 5 years, then of course government within 5 years they can plan in a way that they can accommodate all the changes in the socio-economic development in the country as well as globally, so they can incorporate those changes into the plan. So that is why it's very generally the focus of the stakeholders, okay, and the government itself, and basically, and also the politicians, okay, they look at the Malaysian plan and how to develop what is needed there. And to support the Malaysian plan or the strategic or the medium-term plan is the annual budget. So that's why we're talking about. So the annual budget is basically the operating budget as well as development budget can be apportioned supporting the Malaysian plan. So the annual budget, you can see, I think if you follow the latest trend nowadays, okay, the main discussion in the media is all about the next year budget, 2021. Okay, so the inputs from all stakeholders. I mean, everybody has a role. Okay, the ministers, even Agong himself, will make sure that the execution, the budget should be approved. So tomorrow, the budget will be tabled by the finance minister, and even he went to see Agong for basically to brief him because now it's during the time of crisis. I think Agong made it very clear that the budget should be moved forward, okay, and government shouldn't be because this budget is so important for the frontliners. Right, and so you can see this first Malaysian plan, and then new economic policy, as I mentioned just now, and at the end is the latest is national vision policy. But these are already extended to 2030. Yeah. I think with the new government, then it was extended to 2030. Anyway, so in terms of Malaysian plan, we are completing the 11th Malaysian plan, so moving towards the following 12th Malaysian plan. So that's why it's important, because the Malaysian plan will cover 5 years, and that's why in the planning must include what are the most important areas to bring country forward. Right. Another way to look at it is also Malaysian plan is a development plan. Okay, so that's why you can see that Malaysian government, one of the developing countries, they have a development plan. Okay, so that is one of the major characteristics of developing countries. Okay, so if you look at developed countries, sometimes they don't really have specific development plan. But for developing countries, these are very critical to bring the country forward for the socio-economic well-being of the people in general. Okay, investment in the human capital, in the technology, okay, and also the uniqueness of each country. Okay, in terms of what is needed, mostly needed by the country. Okay, like for Malaysia with the diverse backgrounds, the different races, so the unity of the people is so critical to the country. So that's why more investment is needed. For instance, to make sure that we can move forward. Okay. Economic planning unit. So what is the function? Formulate policies and strategies for socio-economic development. Prepare medium and long-term plans. Prepare development programs and project and the budget as well. So not only they prepare the plan, but as well as with the budgets. Then monitor and evaluate the achievement of the programs. advise government on economic issues, initiate and undertake necessary economic research, and including other programs. In this example here, privatization programs. Okay, so very important, one of the major key units in the Prime Minister office. Okay, example of major government policies, look East policy. This one is started, I think, in 1980s. Nation incorporated privatization. Okay, so you can see clearly the effect of privatization. Of course, the major initiative was undertaken during 1980s and 90s, but the effect you can still see observed until today. Yeah. So, for instance, like utilities companies, okay, telecom, what do you call it, TNB, okay, for the electricity. All these are used to be government entities, okay, a government body like departments. Whereas now they are GLC, government linked companies. In a way, they are still government, okay, government public sector, because they are wholly owned by the government. Poverty Eradication Initiative, Road Safety Initiative, SME Entrepreneurship Scheme, okay. I think government, because it is quite recent for the SME Entrepreneurship Scheme, maybe in starting from 2000 or maybe late 2000, 10, okay. Then moving forward, because the source of employment, okay, not only from the big corporations and listed companies, but empowerment through SMEs. Okay, so these are example of agencies that supporting the SME growth. Matrade, MIDA, MARDEC, SME Corp, SME banks. Okay, in terms of assistance, including grants. So you've understood grants, but grant is not new. If you look at even in 1980s with the new development, attracting the companies, the multinational companies to come to Malaysia, even government give them grants, because the main idea at that time was basically to bring in technology to Malaysia, and then with that they will improve, will bring a job opportunities. Okay, so government have to work with the multinational companies to create jobs. So in a way, so they are given grants for them to set up their facilities in the country. So I think definitely these are part of incentive to attract foreign direct investment. Right, so with that understanding of the planning, now we move to annual budgeting process in Malaysian government, in Malaysian government machinery. Okay, so at the end, all these government agencies, they must receive their funding, budget allocation. So what are the process? Okay, the source of authority, how they can receive the mandate, okay, through Supply Act. So every year, government will issue, the parliament will issue the Supply Act, okay, basically approving the amount of allocation that is approved for the executive to use. Okay, and if that is needed, there is a supplementary Supply Act. But I think it's previously, I think the government quite strict, because whatever been allocated by the parliament, so there is no additional, okay, except if there is in very serious needs, then there is additional budgets from the parliament, okay, approved by the parliament. That's why, okay, so another is Development Fund Act from 1966. So these are the funding for the development project. Okay, from time to time, the Treasury will issue Treasury instructions. Financial Procedures Act also have the provision for the budget estimates as well as Federal Constitution. Right, okay, in terms of the structure still, if you look at here, there is a secretariat in the Treasury, in the Ministry of Finance, Budget Management Division, okay. Then at agency level, so all government agencies, including the ministries, the responsibility of the Chief Accounting Officers, Controlling Officer to submit budget proposal to the Treasury. Okay, so the Treasury have to evaluate, okay, so the officer is a budget review officer. And then at the end, once the budget approved by the parliament, then warrants will be distributed by the Treasury to all government agencies. So in ideally, beginning of the year, the ministries receive the warrants for them to start the operation. Okay, components of the budget. So they have to budget for the revenue, as well as for the expenditures. Okay, for all level, the three-level governments. So at their what do you call it? For the state assembly, okay, for the parliament, okay, for the local council to approve the budget. There are two types of budget: development budget as well as operating budget. So if you look at operating, under operating, there are charged budget as well as supply. So if you look at our focus for agencies are basically supply budget. Okay, charged what is provided by the constitutions as well as Financial Procedures Act. Okay, including salary of the commissions and others. But for the agencies, it supplies estimates, a supply budget, okay, under operating. Right, if you look at the cycle, the budget cycle, it starts from, if you look at at the top on the right, from November. Okay, so at the end, the warrants disbursed in December, okay, at the end of the year. So if you look at this, it's basically November here, if you take in the case of 2021 for the next year budget. So November here basically is November 2019, okay? So it will take almost a year to prepare the budget, right? For the government agencies to propose to the Treasury. So what happened is generally once this one is determination of ET, the expenditure target by the Treasury. So we'll see what ET means later on when we discuss on MBS. Then the Treasury will issue the circular. Okay, by March, the Treasury receive all the proposal by government agencies for them to review. Okay, then there is budget examinations and then consultation with all the stakeholders. Okay, you can see how rigorous it is. Okay, the inputs from the industry, okay, the major stakeholders, the all target groups, okay, to provide inputs to the government. Even if you look at when this proposal need to be tabled, okay, just recently, even among the political parties, okay, they provide inputs to the to the government, and particularly to make sure that they can develop a bipartisan budget, so both groups can approve the members of parliament can approve the budget. Okay, so September, so now of course it's a bit late, November, but quite it's early November. Generally, in other time, not during the crisis, so generally will be tabled in late September or in early October. Okay, so that the parliament have the time to deliberate, so for them to approve the budget at the end of year. Okay, so you can see the planning process is a lengthy process. Okay, as an example here, the preparation of budget, national budget for 2019. So definitely the Treasury will provide guidelines to all government agencies, giving them the framework, budget framework, so that government agencies, when they prepare their budget, they look at their existing activities, they also have to develop in line with the government to support the general government policies. So there are certain emphasis by the government, for instance here, United Malaysia, okay, sustainable development for economic resilience as well as entrepreneurial development, okay. And then beside, okay, prudent spending as well as well-being of rakyat, of the welfare of the people. I think the general policy of the government is basically the well-being of rakyat is through partnership between private sector and public sector, okay. So in other words, government supporting the private sector to create the job employment, okay, for them basically to have a good standard of living. And then generally it's also changes because of economic challenges and all that, where the government provide financial assistance directly to the people in general. Okay, so you can see that they have to look at the scenario, the context of okay, what happened in the particular time. Right, in terms of technical issues of the budget, the need of main stakeholders, okay, that they have to focus on. Outcome should be realistic and the ability to address the need of stakeholders. The outcome is measurable with the use of appropriate KPIs. And then the outcome should be consistent with the national outcome. I think later on we'll see this why, okay, in terms of the technical, once you understand MBS and you understand outcome-based budgeting, so these are all will be in place. Issues to give given attention, the cross-cutting issues that involve overlapping of programs and shared outcomes between ministries, agencies, to be addressed appropriately through, need to be assessed. So you can see that these are real problems. So if there are overlapping, so what will be the effect of overlapping of programs? Anyone? What is it? Any idea?
Inefficiency, sir.
Okay, yeah, exactly. Yeah. So inefficiency here means maybe same activities or same different agencies providing same services. Okay, so there can be overlapping of use of resources. Yeah, I mean as simple as that. But you look, but the issue is this is happening. Okay, as a real problem. Okay, so that's why evaluation of all government activities is an ongoing effort so that they can streamline their services to make them becoming more efficient. Okay, if you look at the breakdown here as an example, for 2017, the total budget is how much? 265 billion. Okay, and so the big chunk, of course, operating expenditures, 46 billion for development. Okay, and then 2018, right? There was an absolute increase of the budget to 280. Okay, all these are before the pandemic, isn't it? Okay, but big chunk of the expenditure is basically on operating. Okay, you have all emoluments, fixed charges, okay, and grants, service supplies, subsidies, asset acquisitions, economic sector, social sector, security. Yeah? And development expenditure is 46 billion. Okay, so I mean, it's almost similar to 2017. Then 2019, there was a cut. 2018, I think the total expenditure, possibly that time reflecting the actual estimates, okay, was becoming 290. And then for 2019, the location was provided 314 billion. Okay. But I think slight drop of for the development expenditures. So huge amount of money, okay, for government expenditures. It's almost like 1/3, okay, 1/3 of GDP. So you can understand the multiplier effects of the government expenditures. You can read also grants, grants to statutory bodies, public corporations, international organizations, gratuities, okay. And I think subsidies, definitely there's a lot of subsidies provided by the government. Right, any question before I move to MBS? Any question? Okay, very quiet. Okay, let me take the attendance. Right, if no questions, are you still with me, brothers, sisters?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Usually, when you listen to the lecture, is it only the lecture on the screen, or you have other things to do? Multitasking. How many of you stay on campus? I should ask this question.
I am in the campus, sir.
Two students only. Two, only two? Three?
Me too, sir.
Four?
Me, sir.
5, 6, 6, 7. Only 7, huh? Only 7?
Me, sir. Me, sir.
7, 8. 8. Who else? 8, huh? Okay. So almost 25%, huh? 20%. Okay. All right. Okay, so I move on. Okay, so with that understanding, we look at this modified budgeting system, right? It was introduced in 1988. Okay, I think at this point, as I said earlier, okay, so all these budgeting techniques for you to understand. Why? Because the system's still in place. Okay, so they're just complementing and improvement. Okay, I think initially even the funding is problematic. Okay, and then there's an improvement of funding. Then it's move on to improve the the scope of responsibilities. So that is moving towards program budgeting. Okay, and then of course there are so many. I think we discussed on the limitations. What happened maybe on paper the programming was good, but in terms of implementation, how to make sure that, because at the end all these budgeting techniques to make sure that the allocation should be used with value for money. Okay, so at the best benefits. Okay, that's why at the end they moved to a modified budgeting system. Okay, basically improvement from the program-based budgeting, but with more flexibilities, as well as during that time contemporary practices or good practices or best practices during that time. Okay. So if you look at this, MBS is a modification of program-based budgeting. Okay, and then there was a pilot. I think it's also good for you to know how they introduced. What they introduced through the Treasury circular. So it's basically the initiative by the Treasury, okay, by the Malaysian Treasury, or it is an initiative by Ministry of Finance. Okay, so what happened is before they for full implementation, they started with the pilot projects. Okay, with the Ministry of Health, Ministry of Public Work. During that time, as a pilot projects to make sure that they can implement, and then so what are the problems they need to address, okay, before they go for they make it for full implementation. Right. If you look at the bottom there, it focuses the relationship between input, output, and impact of the program. Okay, so these are the language being introduced to the in the funding process, okay, by the Treasury, so that there is an improvement between input, output, and impact of the program. So the word input is, it's basically the budget allocation. The output, okay, what needs to be achieved, with the level of services, and the impact. Okay, so impact generally the policy. Okay, if there is poverty eradication, definitely the impact will be reduced in the poverty. What do you call it? Percentage for the country. And if let's say we talk about road accidents, okay? Road accidents, is it a problem? Road accidents.
Yes.
Is it a problem? Okay.
Yes.
So of course, when the government previously, but now I think it looks a bit much improved, because there are cases, but not as many as before. But before there are, sometimes the number of fatalities on the road more than the number of deaths in the war zone. Okay, so something like that. So if government initiate all the initiative, they have to make sure that the rate of road accident reduce. So that will be the impact. Okay. Right, that's one way to look at it. Another is it's also interesting because they make it categorically clear that, okay, the improvement between input, output, and impact. Usually, you don't see this when we discuss this in the private sector, in the companies. Okay, because companies generally quickly we say, okay, how's the performance of the organizations? We just simply say, yeah, how's their profitability? What is their returns? Okay. So, but basically, but in terms of the discussion, the origin of the discussion is the same. Basically, if you look at profit is a relationship between the sales and the expenses. So, relationship between inputs and outputs. Okay, and the impact. Of course, the impact will be return on investment. But of course, they look at just on profitability. for you to understand what it means here. Okay, so that's the relationship. Okay, okay. If you look at the relationship between input and outputs, it's basically about efficiency, and output and outcome is about effective. Okay, so these two dimensions of performance is very powerful. To be efficient and to be effective. In government, besides efficient and effective, they add another element, which is economy. Okay, so when you talk about value for money, basically these three elements: okay, efficiency, effective, and economy. So try to understand that that three elements. And supposedly, okay, good practice here is they can develop the relevant KPIs that reflecting efficiency, and KPIs that can reflect effectiveness, okay, as well as economy. So that's how, and of course, in between, definitely they need good accounting system for them to be able to achieve this. So that there is deliberation within the government agencies, deliberation for the parliament, so that you have a concrete reference. As good as, you know, if you look at companies, they have profits. So how the board of directors are basically accountable for the profitability of the companies. So how that you can have for the government agencies. Okay, so of course, I mean, the language that I use, okay, in the sense of value for money. So these are that language introduced under new public management. So this language, not only for Malaysian government, is applicable to all other countries. Okay. Even if you attend World Bank sessions, so they will still emphasize on this language, how important it is, because room for improvement for all countries are massive. For democratic system, to provide good services to the public. Okay, objective of MBS, improve location of resources. Okay, so you kind of expected, right? But in what way they can improve? I think that's the issue. So because objective is the aim, but what is important is the mechanism that in MBS, are they effective to achieve improvement in the location of resources? So to improve the efficiency and effectiveness of government program and activities, okay, so clearly mentioned effectiveness and efficiency. And thirdly, to strengthen mechanism for accountability of controlling officers. I think what happened is these three, when there's improvement for effectiveness and efficiency. So in other words, government, civil servants, okay, they are given more power, empowerment, okay, more flexibilities, so that they can bring in all their competencies, their understanding to provide best services to the target groups, to the customers. So as a result, okay, they should be accountable for the results. Okay, just like the CEO, they are accountable for the profits. So government agencies or government managers, civil service managers, they should be accountable for the impact and outputs. Okay, so that's the idea. Okay, weaknesses of program-based budgeting. Okay, before we move to the MBS, so why MBS was introduced? So one of the underlying reason, of course, based on the weaknesses of program-based budgeting. The other is basically the good practice that time that was introduced to government sector. So that's why they also adopt those features to the budgeting process. Okay, the weakness of program-based, lack of top and line management participation into budgeting process. I think this also mentioned when we discussed on program-based budgeting. Okay, widespread of incremental budgeting, right? So I think you should understand when the widespread of incremental budgeting, what would be the implication, the quality of the planning. So you need to understand. So basically, the referral, the planning is basically based on past year spending. So past year spending related to the existing activities. Okay, so that's why during those times, government are considered slow. Government are considered, less responsive. Okay, partly can be explained through the budgeting process. Limited financial autonomy for effective decision making. Okay, because line item budgeting pretty much still dominating the budgeting process. Okay. So line item means, one by one, by line item. And also, it's very limited to line item. Whereas in one government agency, there are multiple activities. Okay, they're so limited. The practice of gaming by spending organizations, right? So as mentioned, planning is a time consuming, but if you have gaming, you have to replan. Okay, sometimes because time is very limited, okay, for planning. So with gaming is undermining effective planning. Program, if you're not, okay, I can explain later if you want to, you know, but if you understand budgetary slacks, I think budgetary slacks is gaming, okay? I think that is discussed in DMC or MAF before, or if you take management accounting or cost accounting, if you the topic on budgeting, basically budgetary slacks. So basically gaming is budgetary slacks. Huh? So if you understand budgetary slacks, you understand the same. It's almost the same. Where the spending organization, they inflate their budget, okay? Because why? To avoid the effect of budget cut by the treasury. Okay, program-based budgeting was not used as a management tool to achieve value for money. Then a distinct dichotomy between financial management and operational matters. Okay, lack of involvement of management into budgeting process. So financial generally handled by the director of the admin and financial director. Okay, finance and admin division. And whereas the managers are basically handling the line managers and top management are focusing on the activities. Okay, so if there is dichotomy, then it can create problems. Huh? When key, let's say the new activities need to be funded, so that there is no support through finance, so then cannot be executed. Right, new reform mechanism in MBS, okay, on top of to address the problem of program-based budgeting. So one of them, let managers manage principle, in line with the spirit of freedom to manage to line managers. Huh? So less managers manage mean more flexibilities to line managers. Second, so with that, they have contract and accountable management via program agreement. So basically a performance contract, okay? So you are given flexibility, so at the end you must have performance contract, okay? So it's just like, I think to understand this in your context is basically, you know, between you and your parents, okay? Between you and your parents, right? Or between you and your, if you receive scholarship, generally the funder, they control through your result, isn't it? The academic results. Okay, they will continue their support if you can maintain your CGPA, right? So CGPA is basically results, right? Let's say your parents, right? They give you money. One way, of course, they can control you through every time when you want to make purchase, then they will give you money or they will buy for you. Another way is they give you lump sum money for every month. You can use as you like, but at the end, you must show good results, good academic results. Which one do you like? I ask this question. Huh? If you are still with me, the class, which one do you like? That your parents buy for you, or every time when you want to buy something, you have to ask their approval, or they give you lump sum money, spend as you like, and then as long as you can achieve the academic results. So which one do you prefer? The first or the second?
Lump sum.
Lump sum money.
Yeah, exactly. Huh? So that same idea with this MBS. Okay, so the managers are given the flexibilities. By the end, of course, you are given lump sum, but you must be accountable. Correct? So when if you since you learn this PSA, okay, all of you can request lump sum money from your parents, but for every semester you must submit your CGPA result to them without them asking. Will you do that? Yes or no?
No.
Yes.
Oh.
Yes, of course.
Okay, okay. Since you learn accountability, yeah, and then financial accountability, and all this level of accountability. Since you are given lump sum, so you must report. Okay, so the result must be reported to your parents. Agree?
Yes.
Okay, now you learn, huh? Right. So, I mean, I'm talking about the concepts. Huh? The concept is the same, just like that. Okay. You're given the freedom, but you must report the results. Okay. So that's the mechanism that is in place. Okay, and focus on result-based performance measurement and accountability. Okay, so there's a movement from input-based results, input-based accountability to result-based. So by MBS, by right, if you ask government organizations, if you ask them how you perform for that year, so now they start saying, okay, we are performing well because we achieve all our non-financial KPIs, right? As opposed to how well you spend, how well you perform, instead of saying, yeah, we perform well because we spend all the money, right? So with this, focusing a shift from input-based accountability to result-based accountability. With that also, with MBS, they introduced fiscal control. Okay, if you remember fiscal control, via expenditure target to limit the government spending. Okay, so that's I think fiscal control is a mechanism, okay, introduced globally to make sure that government do not, the level of debt is somehow under control. Okay, but in Malaysia, okay, it's capped through the Treasury Initiative. They call it expenditure targets, okay, under MBS. Okay, let's manage policy, devolution of authority. If you look at the yellow box there, greater flexibility to line managers to manage allocated resources in service delivery. So in other words, they can start having their own priorities, management priorities. I think very important for every manager, top management particularly, okay, the director general and their teams, they must have, they can develop their own priorities. That's why they've been given the task and the job as Director General, or because they can use their professional knowledge and professional competency to manage the organization. That's why priorities by them is very important. How they want to allocate the budget, to what activities or services they should give more focus, as long as the government give them the framework, the strategic framework for them to develop their plan. That's why it's very good for every government agency. That's why every government agency, they have their own strategic plan. Okay, so even if you look at this university, strategic planning is undertaken right from the top of at the university level to the department level. Okay, so for the university, they provide a very broad framework how we're going to develop our strategic planning. So I was the head of departments last time. So even okay, we have our own strategic planning even at the department level. So what need to focus on? Okay. Then to be able to put our priorities, is very important. To a certain extent, we have that flexibility. So I think that recognition is very important. Then you can provide, because why is this important? Because the line managers, they are directly engaged with the customers. They know the customer's problem. Okay, people, the parallel ministry, okay, people at the parliament, definitely they are not directly engaged with the customers. So they'll not be able to understand their problems. Okay, so you're talking about all these branches throughout the country. You're not only in Putrajaya, only in KL. So people in remote area, okay, throughout the countries. I think in last class, okay, some students mentioned about what happened in Sabah and Sarawak, okay, the facilities and all that. It's very true. Of course, together with the flexibility, they must have a greater accountability. Okay. Right, the elements of MBS. Okay, so that's why MBS is basically a continuation of the program-based, but some problems in program-based budgeting supposed to be addressed by the MBS. On top of that, it's also introduced expenditure target, program agreement, okay, as a performance contracts. Cycle performance evaluation still the same as program-based, and on top of that, there are more general approach to expenditure control. Okay, so this together with the less manager managed policy, yeah. So then they give more flexibilities. Instead of under program-based, line item budgeting still pretty much the main control mechanism, okay, where you can spend based on line item. even under program-based budgeting. Right, expenditure target is a ceiling. I think I just quickly go through this because of the time. Expenditure target is a budget ceiling for existing projects, for existing program. Okay, so you can hear for ongoing programs, ongoing programs. So new program, of course, they can propose new budget. So the expenditure target, I think this is very serious, because it means that for that program, the treasury will not give additional budget. Okay, so that's what it means. So that's why the role of controlling officer is important. Okay, because for the existing programs that have been approved, there is no additional budget for it. Okay, so how they determine the expenditure target is based on existing policy, and then together with the increments as well as there is saving proposals. Okay. So if you look at this minus there, they need to take into account saving proposal beside the existing policy budget for existing policies, and then allocation for new policies, new activities, and they have saving proposal. Right. So just look at the third point there. Government organizations are encouraged to put up saving proposal. In the event saving proposal are made by operating agencies, certain amount of saving can be retained by the operating agencies. If saving proposals are pointed out by the treasury, they will lose all the savings. Okay, that was the motivation that time. Okay, program agreement. Program agreement is basically between controlling officers. You look at the bottom there, a contract document, basically a performance contract between controlling officers and the treasury. Okay, controlling officers and the treasury. So take note of this, because at the end, when how effective this program agreement. The other is specify the level of achievement. So the key elements in the program agreement is basically the KPIs. Okay, right? You can read this. Increase accountability for results. These are examples for items in program agreement. So for public work department, Ministry of Public Work basically is GKR, the department. Road and bridges is the program. Maintenance services, huge budget for maintenance services of the roads. Right, there are objectives. So you can see in program agreement clearly mentioned the word customer. Okay, the word customer, road users. Okay, the functions, these are the sub-activities and the outputs there. So you look at the outputs, the resources, this basically budget items, general objects, and all that. And they have output specifications. Okay, there are 12 and 13 output specification as well as the impact. So these are the KPIs that, as I mentioned to you, you are accountable for your results, for your academic results to your parents. So these are the controlling officers are accountable, mainly to the treasury for them to report on this. Okay, quantity, quality, timeliness, unit costs. So unit cost is very critical there, right? So this unit cost is based on accrual-based accounting, based on accrual accounting. During that time, it's basically government, as you know, government is using cash-based accounting, okay? But when they develop MBS, they develop a unit cost based on accrual accounting. So there are challenges there, okay? An impact indicator, decline in the rate of complaints by road user, decline in rate of road accidents. Okay, so that's the impact. Maybe you can also discuss who should be accountable for outputs, who should be accountable for the impact. This also can be debated. Maybe if you continue with your masters, you can read all those. But even for your own reading, okay, you can read all those discussions. Okay, if you cannot achieve the performance, they have to provide exception reports. Just like yourself, if you don't achieve your targets, academic targets, you have to explain, isn't it? So same thing. Okay, cycle for evaluation, but in the case of MBS, very similar to program-based, at least once in 5 years. Okay, to make sure that the activities remain relevant. Okay, more generalized approach to the control. Okay, so the control is more at the total level, because with the expenditure target, they will not get additional budget, okay, from the treasury for the existing projects. That's why the controlling officer, they have to play a role, okay. That's why generally the controlling officer is at the ministry. Yeah? Okay, you look at this as an example, the Ministry of Health that time. So under program-based budgeting, this one is basically about transfer, okay, transfer of budget or environment. Okay, under program-based, the transfer is between 20 general vote, general object 20,000 and 30. Okay, it is related to supplies and services and asset. If you look at the bottom there, the vote. So this also item. Normally, we talk about budget vote. So these are the accounts that been used. It's like what do you call it? Accounts code, isn't it? 30,000 for asset. So the transfer only between these two. Okay, supplies is basically procurements. Asset also procurements. But the emoluments cannot be touched. I think that in a way it's still true because in government the spending, the priorities, the first payment should be salary. Salary must be paid before other payments, right? And but under MBS, the flexibility increase. So now they can not only move between the general objects, they can also transfer between programs. Except that between programs, they have to get approval from the treasury. But more flexibility. So in other words, the government, the controlling officers, because the idea is, if you look at now the scenario of COVID, government are given budgets, let's say 300 billion in 2020. But then because of COVID, there are so many activities cannot be undertaken because of traveling restrictions, because of so many. So in a way that all those monies unspent can be transferred to more critical areas. Okay, so under MBS, definitely those are possible. Those restrictions are possible. Those transfers can be made. Okay. Any question? No. Okay. So overall benefit of MBS, greater involvement of top management. Okay. So customer orientation because of the reduction in the gaming, right? The role of expenditure targets is very useful. Greater involvement of top management in the budgeting process. So that's the key. So if you look at the bottom there, integrating operational and financial matters. And then participation of line managers to the budget, right? And minimize strategies, budgetary slacks. Okay. But the limitation, annuality, still budget, operating budget need to be provided annually. Shortfall of allocation, maybe allocation not enough. And delay in distribution of allocations. So you must remember, particularly those they have to receive warrants. So all government agencies at the ministry level, they have to distribute to the agency. Agency have to distribute throughout the countries. All their branches, offices throughout the country. They must distribute the warrants. Without the warrants, the budget holders, they cannot spend money. Okay, there's a violation of Financial Procedures Act. Right? So that's why I show you if no money means what the photo is showing. Water, river without water. Okay.
Drought.
Yeah, of course. It's an example. Okay. Lack of integration. Okay. Another problem is the lack of integration between development and operating expenditures. Right. Because MBS just addressing operating budget. Then the principle of let managers manage policy is not fully supported. Okay, I think one of the reasons was because managers, controlling officers at the end, they have to be accountable to the parliament. If they delegate the power, so if they somehow lose some certain level of control in terms of decision making, but at the end, they themselves have to be accountable to the parliament. Okay, so in a way that is very fluid. I mean, the changes in terms of less manager manage policy. Okay, another is weaknesses in program agreement, lack of support from top management of spending organizations because of no effective monitoring system or performance target. Okay, blame on the treasury official failure to enforce the performance requirements, right? Basically, budget review officer. But the feedback from the BRO is basically the performance information without reliability, because it's a self-reporting. It's not audited. And another is why program agreement was not received due recognition. Performance target or performance agreement not part of performance and promotional assessment of controlling officers, because promotion of controlling officers are all by the Public Service Department, whereas all these KPIs basically are initiated by the Treasury. So there is gap in terms of the structure. Okay, MBS and new public management. MBS places emphasis on, these are the characteristics of MBS that share the attributes of the international trend of new public management. So in terms of chief of accountability, right? So and then contract management, okay? And then the use of KPIs, the result-based KPIs. Okay, so all these are basically the attributes of new public management. Okay, any question? No question for the lecture. Okay, so if no question, then okay, I think let's just stop the recording. Maybe any question for your assignments?
So I have a question.
Okay.
By way that you see all the agencies have to maximize their the budget allocation, does it mean that all these agencies don't have to try to reduce their cost of handling their programs? I mean, they have to use all the money, or they have to try to reduce the cost?
Okay, so generally there are two stages there. One is their budget proposal. Okay, they propose a budget. So when they propose a budget, okay, supposedly the budget should reflect optimum level of allocation. Okay, with the attributes that is there in the system. Okay, the outcome-based budgeting. Of course, now is we talk about MBS. So that's why there was a issue of saving proposals. Okay, that's one. Once they receive the budget, let's say they request 100 million. Okay, so and then 100 million is approved. So once they receive 100 million, they should spend all of them. Okay, they should spend all of them. So that is part of the what they need to do, because these are government expenditure. That's why planning is very important. So that planning, the budget amount reflecting the optimum level of providing the services. Okay. So that is basically the current understanding that I can share. Okay. So I mean, because okay, to put another way, can I finish this first? To cut spending, not as good as you spend with value for money. I think even in the private sector, we are not saying that you should cut your spending. I think you should spend, but you should spend with greater results. So I think that's the discussion. Okay.
Thank you, sir.
Another question?
Sir, I have question regarding the revenue.
Okay.
Revenue, the amount of revenue the government receives, is it distribute between federal and state?
Okay, I think yes, Brother Tanwir. Because federal government also will provide allocation to the state government. I think in the first class we did discuss that. So look at the lecture in the first class, that the relationships between the state government and the federal government. So there are allocations specified by the constitutions that state government need to be provided for. Okay.
Okay.
But nowadays, I think the state government also becoming more creative. If you look at, of course, the state government also, they are generating their income because they have companies as well. So if you look at the state of Sarawak, now they have their own petroleum company that was recently established. So they can generate their own income from the petroleum activities. Okay, so how they, I mean, this is flexibilities as well as what's happening nowadays. State government also, somehow they can generate their own income. Okay, so if no other questions, I think I end the lecture now. I mean the lecture. If you have any other questions, you can just discuss after I end this class session. So with that, I end with wabillahi taufiq wal hidayah. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi taala wabarakatuh.
Salam.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.